Canada is a wonderful place to live and I wouldn't change it for the world, but there are some things that are pretty difficult when you're making that big move to Canada. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you shouldn't move to Canada. So with that said, let's jump straight into the video. So first thing I just want to say is that this video is not intended to put you off going to Canada. However, these are just things to consider when you are making that big move, and even if you're moving to a different country that isn't Canada, these are still tips which I think you should take into consideration. Now of course, it's also important to mention that most of my experience in Canada is living in Saskatchewan. So this means that if you're moving somewhere different like Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver or Montreal or pretty much any other province, then your experience might be a little bit different to mine. However, with these things I'm going to mention, they do seem to be the case across Canada, at least from other people I have spoken to, but I thought it's important to mention there. So with that said, let's go. So number 1 is getting your credentials recognized. You may think that getting your credentials is easy. Maybe you went to a really good university or really good college and you think straight away, I'm just going to be good to go. Well, that isn't the case, and I think this is the case wherever you are in Canada and depending on what job you are doing. So a bit of context here, I was a teacher in England and I taught in London specifically, and when I had to make the move to Canada, I had to make sure I was able to get my credentials recognised in Canada. Now to do that, I had to go back to university in the UK to top up my teaching degree so that I was able to do that in Canada. Alongside that, I also had to apply for the World Education Service, which is a service which effectively checks that your degrees are legitimate, and it kind of gives you the Canadian equivalency of that. After doing all those things and I got to Canada, then even getting my teaching certification has been a long and lengthy process and something that is just not easy to do at all. And I kind of came onto the assumption that because I did my research, I thought that I would meet the requirements, and I'm still waiting. It's been a long time, but it's something that you really do need to consider when you make that move. This goes for whatever field you're in. However, it's always important to check because you may have lots of hurdles, and in some cases you may need to go back to college or uni or get reaccredited in what you're qualified for. And this is something that is such a shame because lots of people who move to Canada are very much qualified for the jobs they do. However, lots of people find themselves in this situation. So it's important just to do that research, just so you know what to expect when you make that big move. If you've recently moved to Canada and you have gone through a similar process, then I would love to really hear your experience in the comments down below. Number 2, finding a job can be really challenging depending on what jobs you're willing to do. Now, I looked really intensely at jobs before I made the move, and I was so lucky to be able to get a job as soon as I moved here. However, that was very much a case of getting good timing and having a skill which I was very much qualified for, which got me that job. With that said, I know other people who have moved to Canada and they haven't been able to find a job for quite some time, and in some cases they've had to do different jobs that isn't in their field of traditional work back in their home country, because finding jobs is just very tricky here. Now there's a few reasons for this. Firstly, it's because Canada has a very skilled workforce. This means that there's lots of Canadians who could potentially fill those positions, and if you're going up against somebody who is Canadian, in a lot of cases it's possible they're going to get that job over you because they have that Canadian experience. Now, that's not to say this isn't impossible. However, in some cases you may need to be prepared to move to a different province or a different city or travel quite a way to get to work. These things are something that is quite common for Canadians as well as people who are not originally from Canada. One thing I would say here though is remember to also be kind to yourself, because finding a job is not easy, and it's also important to know your worth as well. However, don't be afraid to do something a little bit different and really enjoy that experience. But most importantly, be kind to yourself because it is not an easy process. Okay, this leads me on to number 3, which is the high cost of living in Canada. Now, while my home country, England, is pretty expensive and the cost of living is quite high, I have to say it is generally the same in Canada. And even in Saskatchewan, where I'm living, the cost of living can be quite high, especially for things such as your bills, your groceries, your phone bills. So all those different things can add up. Now, in my case, I make up for that because my rent isn't that high and I have a very high possibility of being able to buy a house in the future. And if anyone's thinking of moving to Canada, I have to say Saskatchewan is a great province to be. With that said though, if you're moving to another province like Toronto or Vancouver or even Calgary, the cost of housing could be a lot higher, which means you could have quite high expenses every month, which means that you might not necessarily be better off than what you would if you were in your home country, depending on where you're from. So while I'm talking about the high cost of living, there are so many amazing things that I love here that I could never do in the UK, which I will talk about in other videos as well. Number 4, you have to drive everywhere, and this is something that I see especially living in Saskatchewan. And being a European, I'm used to being able to walk to the local shop if I wanted to, or if I wanted to grab a coffee, I could do that pretty easily. Or if I wanted to get a pint from the local pub, very easy to do. Now, in Canada, unless you're in a big city, that's often not the case. And if I want to buy something like a pint of milk, then I have to drive to Walmart to do that. I can't just walk there, which for me is something that really sucks because I like walking and I'm not a huge fan of driving, to be honest. Now, if you like driving, this probably isn't a big deal whatsoever. However, if you are like me and you'd rather walk as much as possible, then it could be a little bit challenging. However, again, like anything, there's pros and cons, but this may make your move a little bit difficult, especially if it's something that you're not used to. So this leads me to my final reason why you shouldn't move to Canada in this video, and this is homesickness. Now, it's important to note that this is going to be different for every single person who moves to Canada. However, pretty much everybody who moves from a different country or even a different province, you're going to find yourself that at some point you become homesick. Now, this is something that is completely normal, and to be honest, I would hope that's something that wouldn't put you off moving, because it does get better over time. However, it's also okay to feel homesick, and it's okay to miss your close friends and family. These things are normal, and just to remember, be kind to yourself. Now, I know for me, one thing I quite like to do is there's a British store in Saskatoon, and if I ever feel really homesick, I sometimes go there and get some different British food and stuff like that. Now, when I'm doing that, I'm often paying double what it would cost in the UK. However, for me at that point, I'm just trying to get something that's a little bit of a taste of home. And another thing I would recommend doing is, especially with advancements in technology, you can now do things like FaceTimes and Zooms, and those things, at least for me, really did make a difference. Still having that communication with your friends and family as much as possible. If you're in a position to and you're really struggling, then sometimes it's okay just to go home for a couple of weeks and then come back. And this is something that I'm probably going to do at least once a year so I can see my friends and family. So there we have it. There are 5 reasons why you shouldn't move to Canada. Now, with that said, Canada is a beautiful country, and this video really is not intended to put you off coming, because there are so many great things. And if you want to hear more about my experiences, and especially the good things, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. My name is Jack. I recently moved to Canada, more specifically Saskatchewan, and I am documenting my experiences so I can help people who are making a similar move. If you enjoyed the video, I would love it if you just say hey in the comment section. I really do want to talk to you and find out where you guys are, where you're from, and if you want to move to Canada, because I can also answer questions for you as well. So with that said, my name is Jack. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye.